video podcast. I'm Brent Dodge, owner of Alpine Physical Therapy. I have a unique topic that I want to present today, one that I'm very passionate about, and that is exercise choices. And as we begin to think about exercise choices, wouldn't it be best to choose exercises that actually have impact on your body? We're going to talk a lot about exercise choices today, and hopefully you can walk away with something that's practical, something that you can begin right away, and something that's going to actually make a difference in your body and in your health. Overriding this topic is the name high-intensity interval training. Those words may not mean much to you right now, but hopefully by the end of our brief video podcast, those words will. HIIT, again, high-intensity interval training. You see, the reality in today's society is that people are falling ill primarily because of belly fat. Not just because they're overweight, though that is a problem in itself. It's the idea of belly fat, that fat around the waist. And if you take a waist circumference measure, what we're finding as of August 2nd, 2010, when the Archives of Internal Medicine published their science, they found that people that have in excess of 35 and particularly up to 40 inches around their waist, if they're over 50 years old, have twice the mortality rate. They have twice the likelihood of dying within 10 years. That risk escalates after the age of 50. So the real question is, what can we do from an exercise standpoint to minimize belly fat? And that's really what I want to talk to you today about, is some ideas that may help you conquer the battle of the bulge, as it were. I want you to imagine just for a second, if you have the need to shed some pounds, or if you're not as strong as you'd like to be, maybe you've lost some strength over time or some conditioning over time, what would it be like if you could shed 25 pounds, or that you could increase your stamina so that you could race up to the mailbox or climb a mountain and not be short of breath or near death? Imagine what it would be like to be able to do the hobbies and activities that you really want to do, but your body seems to be holding you back. That's what this talk today is about, high-intensity interval training. Now for me, I was a guy that really believed in doing long, continuous exercise, what some people would call aerobic exercise, where you get on a bike for 45 minutes or you go for a jog for 45 minutes. What I found is I was caught up in the myth that that approach can actually burn fat. And I learned firsthand that when you add intensity to the exercise equation, from a scientific background and from a practical standpoint, and this is the standpoint of standing in front of a mirror and going, gee whiz, this approach really works. That's what happens when you add intensity to the equation. And I found that out when I began to run straight up a mountainside that had vertical stair steps. It was a Mount Tabor, and it's literally in Portland, the city of Portland. And because I only had a short period of time to exercise, I chose to just run up and down that mountain. And within a very short time, I began to notice changes in my body composition that I hadn't seen having done aerobic exercise, long continuous exercise for 15 prior years. So I had a personal impact from this approach that I'm going to teach you today. No, I'm not asking you to go vertical up a mountainside. I'm just saying that the intensity piece of the equation is what makes the difference. You know, there was a study that came out of Boston University where they actually took a hormone and turned that hormone up in willing mice. Those mice, it was as if they were doing a somewhat of an intense workout with some weight or some higher intensity work. They burned fat, they got trim, and they had reduced resistance to insulin. All good things for health and fitness. 6 weeks after the study, they turned off that hormone. What they found is that the mice became obese. They did have resistance to insulin, and they had fatty liver damage. And so the things that we do to help increase the intensity of our workouts have a direct impact on health and wellness. By pushing the envelope of intensity, we do a couple things. Number one, we maximize oxygen input. That is a measure of fitness. And when you look at somebody that's doing a long continuous exercise, like running, jogging, being on a treadmill or on a stationary bicycle, they're going to increase the amount of oxygen that they're taking in. Intensity training does the same, but intensity training also pushes the anaerobic, that means without oxygen, threshold. And that too is a mark of incredible fitness. By pushing the envelope of the anaerobic threshold, you're able to burn the oxygen faster at the front end, and utilize the physiology in your body to actually burn fat. And that's why intensity training works. Immediately in the exercise, you begin to burn the body's sugars, the stores of sugars called glycogen. But if you push so hard and fast that you become short of breath, what we call an oxygen debt, basically you have to pay that back by grabbing from fat cells, grabbing those fat cells, breaking them down, and retrieving that substance so that you can then replenish the glycogen that you just burned. And that's why intensity training works. The other thing about it that I want you to know is that you actually begin to train very specific muscles and muscle types with intensity training. Now, in the body, to make it simple, like a turkey, we have dark and white meat, or red and white meat. Red meat is red because it has a lot of cells that utilize oxygen. That's type 1 tissue. White meat, on the other hand, is type 2 muscle tissue. It doesn't care about oxygen. What it's interested in is improving strength, power, mobility, agility, strength, and these are all marks of higher level fitness that you don't get by long, moderate intensity exercise. When you push the envelope of intensity training, you begin to utilize the white meat that you otherwise wouldn't get in a workout. People that increase their type 2 muscle fiber use show improved muscle toning. Those are the muscles that actually begin to tone when you work them. You don't get that muscle toning when you use type 1 muscles, such as walking, jogging, a slow swim, a walk in the park. You don't get the muscle toning effect that you get when you pursue exercise that brings in the type 2 muscle fibers. We need type 2 muscle fibers, particularly as the years wear on, because a lot of times we end up losing muscle mass, we lose strength, we become deconditioned, then we lose balance, and by losing strength, balance, and conditioning, we're an accident waiting to happen. Somebody that becomes frail doesn't get to do the activities that he or she wants to do for fear of a potential fall. People that eventually fall, a lot of times they break their hips because their bones aren't strong, and as a result, their body has to rebuild that bone tissue that's been fractured, and these people who are deconditioned and frail end up dying because of the hip fracture. So when we hit 50 and muscle strength begins to decline, which it's documented that it does, it's super important that you learn exercise approaches that attack, that help type 2 muscle fibers. And that's what this program on high-intensity interval training is all about. We want you to have maximal uptake of oxygen. We want you to push the anaerobic threshold, and we want to help you develop strength in the type 2 muscle fibers so that you do have better balance, better strength, better power, better speed, all of which come about from working those muscles. So let's think about life for a second. Are we wired for type 1 muscle fiber use or type 2? Well, if you think about any sport out there, most any sport is type 2. Let's think about them. Football, down set hike, it's very interval related. Similarly with baseball, hitting that ball one time, it's a 1 repetition maximum that you need as much power as you can get into that ball, similar to golf, where you need that drive. So there's exercises or sports like these that require type 2, and most do. Type 1 would be something like a marathon, a long swim. Those require a lot of type 1 fibers, and I guess the question that you need to answer for yourself is, do you want to train like a marathoner, look like a marathoner, or do you want to look like a sprinter and feel the benefits of somebody that's doing sprint training or doing high-intensity interval training that build muscle like a sprinter? So when you look at most sports, you see that we are wired for intensity work as opposed to long, moderate, and continuous types of exercise. Similarly with children, if you watch them play, you can tell that it's an interval world because they do things with start and stop. They climb a ladder, they climb a little fence, they slide down. There's intervals that occur. Let's talk about implementing a program of HIIT, high-intensity interval training. I want you to keep in mind that the science shows that whereas some people might do 45 to 60 minutes of an aerobic type exercise like walking or jogging on a treadmill, high-intensity interval training has its benefits in a very short amount of time. Much of the research information that we see out there compares long continuous exercise at say 60 minutes versus high-intensity interval training for say 4 to 8 minutes in a day or a week. So it's very easy and very fast to get an intensity interval workout and have even greater benefits than someone who may be spending an hour doing an exercise program. And part of that gets back to pushing the anaerobic threshold to the point that you have to pay back the oxygen debt that you owe because you've worked so hard and fast that now you have to stop and catch your breath. That's where the physiology occurs. That's where fat burning and muscle toning occur, is in that rest phase between those bouts of work. So in our program, what we're trying to get to is at least 4 minutes of work spanned out over a very short period of time, which I'll talk about, and we ask that you do the program 4 days a week. Why only 4? Well, because your body needs rest. If you do 4 days of high-intensity interval training, you're going to get maximal benefits by having breaks in between so that you have a day of recovery between some of your workouts. And that's where the actual benefits can help you. If you decide that this program is really working and you want to do more, I recommend that you do more bouts during the day of these intervals as opposed to more days a week. Stick with the 4-day-per-week model. Here's how it works. We want you to achieve 1 minute of work. And there's 2 ways that you can get 1 minute of work. You can either go with what's called a triple 20. That's 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off, 20 seconds on. If you count up those 20 seconds that you're doing maximal effort, that equates to 1 minute. Once you've nailed down 1 minute, you're going to take a 4-minute rest, at least 4 minutes. And you're going to do that sequence 4 times. If you add it up, that's 4 1-minute bouts of work. Now, not only can you do a triple 20 where you work for the 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off to get 3 of those to equal 1 minute, you can also, as you become more conditioned, do what's called a double 30. That's 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 30 seconds on. How much work did you do? Well, 30 on plus 30 on is 60 seconds. You did 1 minute of work. What do you do then? You break for 4 minutes. Go do some stretches. Go get a glass of water. But come back and add this up because you're going to do 4 1-minute bouts, either with triple 20s or double 30s. I don't recommend that you try to work hard and fast for 1 solid minute. You want to break that minute up either into a triple 20 or a double 30. And the goal is to do 4 of those, each separated by a 4-minute break. I know that sounds impossible to get a workout in 4 minutes a day. What I'm suggesting, it's 4 maximum minutes a day, 4 days a week, for a total of 16 minutes a week will give you way greater benefits than a long, moderate, continuous exercise approach. People that are doing the 4-minute program will begin to see results in terms of stamina, strength, quickness, balance, reduction in belly fat. Now, if you're going to increase how much work you do, what I'm going to say is continue to do a double 30 if you're getting in good shape. Do 4 of those. That means 1 minute on, 4 minutes off, 4 times. As you get more and more trained, you may want to add more intervals. You could go 5, 6, 7, or 8, but keep the span of time for the rest in between each interval. You have a work interval and a rest interval. It's very important you take that rest. Initially, the rest interval is 4 minutes. As you get more conditioned, you can reduce that to, say, 3 minutes or even 2 minutes. But I highly recommend beginners and even intermediate folks stick with that break period of at least 4, maybe then 3 minutes. What we're going to do right now, we're going to take a little break, but I'm going to come back and talk about how to implement a very easy to do, yet very efficient form of exercise that you can choose from a couple different alternate ways of doing this and get a dynamite exercise program that you can start today and begin to see effectiveness in burning belly fat and improving all those things that go with type 2 muscle fiber development, such as balance, strength, agility, speed, and power. One option for putting the high-intensity interval training program into place is to use a stationary bike. It's very safe. It won't get away from you like a bike that you might ride outdoors. It's one that you can set up, you can get a bit of a warm-up, a couple minutes to get things going, get your blood pumping, get your joints ready to go. Once you're ready to begin, you watch that clock because you're going to either do 20 seconds on or 30 seconds, depending if you're doing a triple 20 or a double 30. For example, here, we're going to do a double 30, which would be 30 seconds of work, followed by 30 seconds of rest. She'll repeat that second 30-second bout, giving her 1 minute of work. How long does she rest after that? At least 4 minutes if she's in a beginner to an intermediate level. Beyond that, you can begin to shrink that rest interval to, say, 3 minutes or even 2 minutes, but I recommend that 4 minutes to start. So we're just about ready to start here. I'm going to give her a 3, 2, 1, go. Now remember, this is a maximal effort. You might think you're going to a maximum. I want you to go a little faster. And remember, if it's a 20-second bout, it's only 20 seconds, and then you get a rest phase. In this case, she's going to be doing 30 seconds and taking a rest phase. In that rest phase, she'll catch her breath and repeat for a second 30-second bout. Go ahead and rest. So she's in that rest phase. I recommend that you completely rest during that time. Once you've completed it, you'd go for a second bout of 30 seconds. Don't let this fool you. It's a maximal effort, and you will go into an oxygen debt like we talked about. That's good, because that means you're going to go into a fat-burning process for 24 to 48 hours. So let's go on to the next piece of equipment. A second piece of equipment that you can use is called the Xizor. The Xizor is a small stepper. It's available if you go to my website, alpineptmissoula.com. Click on the red button in the lower left-hand square. It'll take you to the website where you can actually look this over, read about the science, and see the piece of equipment. This is a great way. It's very compact. You can take this piece of equipment with you wherever you go. It's really designed for HIIT, and if you watch, you can not only do the feet and get a real nice workout by working your legs, but you can add the arms in with what's called a curl and press, where you bring the weight up to the chin and reach to the sky. So now you get legs and arms at the same time. You can do the legs and arms at the same time on the bicycle as you advance as well. Great work. Another nice option that you could do at home or your office or even at the gym is called a squat press, otherwise known as a squat thruster. The idea is that you're going through a very familiar movement of sitting down, standing up, and reaching up. In this case, you could use a weight. Start out with a very light weight till you know that this is safe and easy to do. And basically what we're going to have you do is sit down and stand up. And when you stand up, then you're going to reach up. Go ahead and do a few of those. Nice. We want a nice elevation in the shoulders. Come on up and hold your arms up for a second. What we don't want is the arch increasing too much in the low back. If you need to bring your arms forward a little bit to protect your low back, please do so. The other thing I want you to be aware of is as you sit, I want those kneecaps going over your toes. I don't want them dropping in like this. You've got to keep those knees aligned over your feet. You can use a support such as a chair that you can then sit down and stand up. So think of it as sitting down, standing up, reaching up. Let's have you go through a few of those. Here again, you could use your triple 20, which is the 20-second on, 20-second off 3 times, gives you 1 minute of work. Or you could do a double 30. You do this hard and fast for 30 seconds, rest 30 seconds, repeat for 30 seconds for 1 minute of work. You're going to do 4 of those separated by 4 minutes of rest. Let's have you go to a maximum. Really take the speed, watch your back, keep your back safe, keep your abs engaged, keep those knees aligned. And again, you don't want to catch yourself under the chin, but you want to go to a maximum effort on this. Go ahead and rest. I want you to have some familiar movements that you can use to implement your HIIT program. One of which we showed you was something as simple as standing up and reaching up. This exercise is called a Turkish Getup, and it really is just the idea of getting off the floor. I'd like you to start on your back. You're going to roll to one side, bring a knee up, get into a lunge position, and go ahead and stand up. Now come all the way back down in the same fashion. Boom. All the way back onto your back. Legs come out straight. Let's do another repetition. To the left. Good. And back down. Each time you come up and back down is 1 repetition. You can do this using your triple 20 model or your 30-second, your double 30 model. Either way, what you're going to do is do a maximum effort in both, in this case, speed, going as fast as you can, but using good, safe technique. Let's have you do a couple quickly. Come on up. So one way to attack those type 2 fibers is to increase the speed of the exercise. Go ahead again. The other is to add mass. So to add mass, we can place a weight in her hand. Go ahead and lie back. Not only can we increase speed, now we can increase mass. With a Turkish Getup, using a very light weight to start with, or even no weight if you haven't done it before, you're always going to be pointing the weight toward the ceiling all the way through the move. Keep that arm vertical toward the ceiling as you go. Very nice. And back down. Keep that weight vertical. I'd really caution you to start out with no weight until you get very comfortable with a Turkish Getup. Now, we've been working all of the moves to the left. You can easily then do the move on the right. And you could actually do one to one side, one to the other as you go through your triple 20 or your double 30.